Old predictions come to pass. Sony is the new Borg Hive. That's coming up next right here on your Morning Jolt. What's up, guys? Mark back. First thing in the morning with your Morning Jolt here on the Photo Video Show. Listen, I just checked out, every morning I'm going through all these different websites and I'm looking around. This morning I happened to find an article. It was originally posted on Petapixel, and then they linked to the actual article, which was on Bloomberg. Bloomberg has this article that says, Sony's new super fast cameras are winning over the pros. Well, I just want to say that I made a video. I believe it was in January of 2015. Let me see. Already got it pulled up. 2015, and it says that I'm divorcing Nikon and I'm starting an affair with Sony. And then I also put the A6000. That was sort of like my first foray into the Sony line of cameras was the A6000. You know, it was something small, light, compact, and it was going to enable me to take all the shots that I would normally want to take while out and about and still maintain good image quality, fast speeds. I got so much hate for that video. And I really think that most people, they're very resistant to change. And if you look through the comments on that video, they are horrendous towards me. They absolutely are bashing me. I'll give you an example just real quick. This guy right here, he says, this is getting too obvious with every photographer saying almost the exact same words in the same order. Sony sends out the script. I'm sorry, man. I don't mean to be bashing you. And I think the A6000 is a good camera, but I guess the impact of these types of videos and messages are a very big way to increase sales. We all got to make a living. Anyone that's been around for a while knows at this point that Sony never paid any of us anything. We just kind of saw the writing on the wall. That it may have not necessarily been that Sony was going to be the best. No one really knew at that point. No one actually had an idea about who was going to end up on top of the pile. Taking on Canon and Nikon, who've basically had a stranglehold on the camera market for over 100 years, that's a pretty tall order. But just like with film, a lot of people were very resistant to moving on and moving into the future with digital. But that has proven to be probably one of the best things you could do. I used to shoot film. While on occasion I still like to shoot film, film is a pain in the ass. It requires a lot of extra work to get a pretty image in front of your face. Now, granted, this is not talk about the differences or the nuances of, film, dynamic range, and character and all that kind of stuff as compared to digital. What it is this is the reality of cameras and digital imaging. People don't want to be hassled. People want to do what it is that they have to do to get a pretty picture. Artists don't necessarily want to go back to drawing on cave walls with rocks and charcoal either. So they've increased the level of technology, brushes and canvases and all that kind of stuff. No one thinks for a second that artists of today are selling out because they're not, standing there carving stuff into rock walls. So why is it any different with cameras or cell phones for that matter? Why should it be any different? And that's something that I've never understood. If something makes your life faster, easier, better, I don't understand why you would just go, I'm not using that. That's that new fandango garbage and no one likes it. The sales say otherwise. Most people are just trying to get a job done or to fill up some hobby time or to enjoy their process. And if something is a hindrance to that process, you got to find something else. Or you start trying other things. You start experimenting. You want to know. So that's exactly what I did with the Sony A6000. As a matter of fact, I still got my trusty A6000 right here. I don't know how many frames are on it. I don't even know if I have a battery in it right now. Probably not. But I've probably got about 50 or 60,000 shots taken on this particular A6000. I did have another one. And I also had an A5100. I've also had an A6300. I've had an A6500. They are dependable cameras. And a lot of people was just like, man, it feels like a toy. It's no good. But this was my original Sony A6000. I've probably done maybe 50 different photo shoots with this camera. Thousands upon thousands of images taken with it. I have shot everything with it. I've shot portraits, I've shot landscapes, I've shot close-ups, I've shot macros, I've shot everything with this camera, and it has been an extremely reliable camera. Honestly, when I bought it, I got it as an open box buy at Best Buy. I got it for like $352 or something. And I don't know why. The only thing that was missing was the eye cup. For those of you that were always being naysayers, you're probably not watching anymore, and you're probably not even a naysayer anymore. But on the Bloomberg article, it says, Sony's new super fast cameras are winning over the pros. And then, they go through a whole list of, what used to go down as far as like Canon and Nikon basically enjoying market dominance, and they have. So when Sony came out, probably, 5 or 6 years ago, and they were basically new to the full camera lineup of cameras. I mean, they didn't really have anything. So here's what happened. Canon and Nikon didn't do anything about it. They didn't try and hedge that bet by going, hey, well, this is something that we should maybe look into. They just sat, and they just didn't do anything. They never did anything. And it really started to kind of change over just the last year or so. Maybe a little bit. They've tried to dabble here and there. But see, Canon and Nikon, their bread and butter has always been high-end professionals. People that were shooting, sports, NFL, NBA, baseball, all that kind of stuff. Wedding photographers and all that. Most people are resistant to change. But if you have a very fluid system, you can incorporate different pieces of technology into your life, give it a shot, and, there's a chance it just might work out. And I think that has happened more and more and more and more because the masses have finally started accepting the fact that maybe, just maybe, that mirrorless cameras are dependable enough that they can be used for professional work. I have known plenty of photographers that have made a fantastic living with their mirrorless cameras. I mean, I've never heard anyone, except for maybe the few outliers, have any real major problems, with their cameras. It's just not been a thing. People can say, oh, they don't have a very good support structure. They don't have, pro support and all this other kind of stuff. But you don't need as much support or pro support if you're not having many problems. You've got less moving parts in these cameras. Most of it is software or electronic based. Coming from the days of film, when I used to shoot on stuff like this, these old Minolta cameras and the old medium format cameras, these are excellent cameras, but they are a hassle. You've got batteries to worry about as far as in the winders, and you've got to always worry about that shutter curtain always messing up on you or coming loose or getting a wrinkle in it. And, you've got to wind your film, you've got to take it to be developed, or you've got to develop yourself, which then opens up a whole new ball of wax where you have to buy your own chemicals and have a nice dark room to do your developing. It really is just a real pain in the ass. And then comes along DSLRs, where you still have a lot of moving parts. You've got the flappy mirror all the time. It will ruin shots if you're slower on your shutter speeds. It's loud. It's kerchunk every single time you hit the shutter button. And then in comes these mirrorless cameras with their silent shutters and their amazing electronic viewfinders that literally everyone took a dump on as well. And I kept telling people over and over again, this is the future. This is the way the market is going to go because it actually does provide value. I don't know why people hung onto their mirrors for so long, but it's an unnecessary step. And if cell phones can do it, I mean, if you get a cell phone, it has no mirror. It has an extremely small sensor. But I think computational photography is going to be the future after mirrorless. And really, all mirrorless is one of these with a big sensor. That's pretty much it. But I think computational photography is the next step, so that you don't have to that way you don't have to have 4,000 lenses. Computational photography, if you don't know, is basically taking a series of photographs. And once the processors get strong enough and get powerful enough, every single shot you take will have basically focus stacked shots, and then you'll be able to pick your point of focus You won't even have to try. You just shoot it in that direction and then pick where your focus point is going to be next. That is where the future is heading. And it's going to be a pretty sad day for most photographers because that will enable anyone with almost zero skill to take photographs. Most of you are going to cry. You're going to be upset. But that is the future. So while mirrorless is the top dog at the moment, DSLRs are going away, which I'm not sad about whatsoever. But Sony is winning over the pros because of cameras like the A9. The A9, according to the article, actually won 3 different camera competitions. It's proving itself, okay? And that is why it's succeeding. They saw a window of opportunity, and I got to commend them because they took on everyone. They're making almost every single sensor for every single cell phone. They're making Nikon sensors. They're making Fujifilm sensors. They are going to be just fine financially. Now, whether their cameras will be able to stand up and stay counted for an extended period of time, that's remains to be seen. The only one that can determine that is the market. If people are finding that their cameras are awesome, they like to hold them, they like to actually shoot with them. If the camera doesn't get in the way too much, then they'll succeed a whole lot. Now, I don't want to discount Canon and Nikon. They have a lot of resources, a lot of financial resources to make a comeback if they really wanted to make a comeback. A lot is going to be riding on Canon and Nikon in the next 4 to 5, 6 months. If they're going to release something that's going to be worth something, they're going to have to do it pretty soon, okay? And it's going to have to be substantial. It's going to have to be off the charts awesome, or they are not going to survive. Now, this is just my prediction. I could be wrong, but I think, personal opinion, that even if Canon and Nikon's first major iteration of the mirrorless camera comes to fruition, and it has some really nice specs on paper, I still think that they're going to have too many bugs. And you'll probably end up having to wait for an actually solid offering, maybe 2nd gen, maybe 3rd gen. Who knows? I don't want that to happen. I want a really, really good showing from Nikon and Canon. Because if they actually offer some level of competition, that's only going to drive the market. It's going to drive innovation. People are going to have to step up their game yet again and bring the pain. Now, yesterday I talked about Fuji replacing the X-T2 with the X-T3. I love this camera. Not only is it a mirrorless camera, not only does it do silent shooting and everything else, but the camera has a soul. It has like all these amazing wheels, dials, buttons, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, that is sexy. This camera is sexy. And after you remove the battery grip, it's not much bigger than like an A6000 or A6500. But Sony is sort of like the Borg hive, right? They don't do any one thing like super awesome. They don't have a flip screen, so Panasonic owns them on that. They do have pretty damn good autofocus, but Canon's dual pixel is better than theirs. Maybe only by that much, but it is still better. As a matter of fact, I'm using a Canon camera right now. They don't have a really well implemented touchy flippy screen. And Canon and Panasonic are both kicking their rear ends on that front. They don't have like a lot of physical wheels, dials, and buttons, so that means you're always having to dig into a menu, which is half the reason I bought into Fujifilm. Not to mention their amazing APS-C glass. There are plenty of options out there, and as a consumer of cameras, I think it's a good thing. I want Sony to do very, very well. I want them to kick a lot of names and take a lot of ass, because that's only going to put pressure on all the other camera companies. Canon and Nikon sat on their ass for way too long. They thought that maybe it was just going to be a passing fad or something like that. Well, surprise, surprise, now that they realize that it is a viable option, now they want to get into the game and offer something that's worth a shit. And I hope they do. I want there to be a battle royale. I want them all to be knocking each other the hell out, and different brands are going to appeal to different people. Those Sony and or those Canon and Nikon guys that have held on to their glass all this time, they're going to keep it because they'll be able to easily adapt EF lenses, just like they're doing with the Canon M mount. They'll be able to adapt those EF lenses onto the mirrorless system. Nikon is creating a whole new line, a whole new mount. It's good. You see now that when Sony starts getting in the mix, when Fujifilm starts getting in the mix, when Panasonic starts getting in the mix, when Olympus, no one ever mentions Olympus, and I'm sorry about that. But when those companies started taking it on, now, finally, after 5 or 6 good solid years of mirrorless rising in popularity with all of the photographers that actually keep them afloat, now they're going to start working on something new. All right, guys, so that's all I've got for you all today. I would love to hear your all's opinions. Drop those comments down in the comment section below. Let me know. Is Sony finally encouraging the pros to make the switch over? You guys tell me. I don't know. I'm using Fujifilm right now. So at any rate, thanks so much for stopping here and hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you guys tomorrow on the Morning Jolt. Peace.